Welcome to the T Row Show. This is your host, Keith. Had some interesting thing to talk about here as far as bonds are concerned, because I've always had I don't know about everybody else here, but I've always had a really rough time completely understanding what a bond is and how it binds people and all this stuff, especially when it comes to the justice system. Now, I know municipal bonds are fairly simple. I know that when they join in, or they're, I believe, when they're gathering revenue, they need a project done, like roads finished and all this stuff. That's is the interest is paid for by the taxpayers on those bonds. Let me read you some definitions here, so we kind of get to a certain point in the show, so you know what we're talking about here. Now, I'm just going to read to you, so just sit back, get your night tea out. That's a joke. In finance, okay, a bond is a type of security under which the issuer, the debtor, owes the holder, creditor, a debt. Okay, so if the municipality is issuing bonds, they're the debtor, and people that are investing in the bonds, those would be that would be the creditor. Now it says which owes the holder, creditor, a debt, okay, and is obliged, depending on the terms, to provide cash flow to the creditor. Okay, repay the principal. So they have to pay per month or per quarter, usually every 3 months. They'll have to pay a certain amount to get that cash flow back to the creditor. Now, amount borrowed of the bond. So it says to provide cash flow to the creditor, repay the principal, i.e., amount borrowed of the bond at the maturity date, as well as interest called the coupon. Okay, over a specified amount of time. The timing and the amount of cash flow provided varies, depending on the economic value that is emphasized upon, thus giving rise to the different types of bonds. Okay, they could have just said there's different types of bonds. The interest is usually payable at fixed intervals, semi-annual, annual, and less often than at other periods. Thus, a bond is a form of a loan or IOU. Okay. So that's what's happening. People are loaning money to the local governments, and the local governments are paying them back with interest. And they use your tax money, your property taxes and stuff like that, to pay back the interest over and above the loan. Okay, so basically, creditors and these people that invest in these are living off the interest of that over and above what they invested. So bonds borrow with external funds to finance long-term investments, or in the case of government bonds, to finance current expenditures. Okay, so bonds and stocks are both securities. Listen to that. Bonds and stocks are both securities. But the major difference between the two is that the capital stockholders have an equity stake in the company. They are the owners, whereas the bondholders have a creditor stake in the company. They are lenders. As creditors, bondholders have priority over stockholders. Okay, listen to that. As creditors, bondholders have priority over stockholders. So these people that are coming back in and saying they're the secured party creditor and everything, now you understand that you have never bought a municipal bond. And when you haven't done that, you're not the creditor. You haven't invested any money in that. So that's why the secured party creditor is charging $1,000 to make you the creditor. That's a scam. I've been telling people that for years. This means, okay, so that as creditors, bondholders have priority over stockholders. Why? I don't know, other than it's just a class system. I don't see why they would. If they're the owners of the company, why would they have priority over stockholders? So let's go beyond that. This means they will be repaid in advance of stockholders, but will rank behind secured creditors. In the event of bankruptcy, Another difference is that bonds usually have a defined term or maturity, after which the bond is redeemed, whereas stocks typically remain outstanding indefinitely. Interesting, right? And an exception is an irredeemable bond, which is a perpetuity. That is a bond with no maturity. Certificates of deposit or short-term commercial paper are classified as money market instruments and not bonds. The main difference is the length of the term of the instrument. So the most common forms include one more paragraph here: corporate or government bonds, municipal, corporate, and government bonds. Very often the bond is negotiable. That is, the ownership of the instrument can be transferred to the secondary market. This means that once the transfer agent at the bank medallion stamped the bond, it is highly liquid on the secondary market. The price of a bond in the secondary market may differ substantially from the principal due to various factors in bond valuation. Now let's go on to bond valuation. Let's see if I can share some screens so you're just not sitting there looking at a blank screen. Here it is. This is gonna, believe me, I fall asleep during this kind of stuff. So I get it. This sounds boring. I do understand that. But it's actually going to go into something here in just a few seconds or just a few minutes. They even turn this into a value approach, and it's all basic math here. Okay. So that they use math to give it some validity. So if you see F here, you'll see face value. Okay. If you see IF, that's a contractual interest rate. C equals F, blah, blah, blah. Coupon payment, periodic interest payments. N is number of payments, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so you have N here, and then you have this. So you can figure out, based with this right here, coupon payment, periodic interest payment, you can see that that's C, C, and C. Okay, so then there's C equals the amount of payments. So they put this in a nice little package there. So under this approach, an extension or application of the above, the bond will be priced relative to the benchmark, usually a government security. Sorry, I keep hitting this thing. See relative valuation. Here, the yield to maturity on the bond is determined based on the bond's credit rating. Okay, relative to a government security and similar maturity or duration. In other words, do you pay? Okay, that's that right there. Now, let's take based on all this stuff that people like to talk about. Oh, your birth certificate's worth this, so you're automatically you're rich, right? That's a way to draw you in. That's what a guru does. The thing that draws people in: money, power, and sex. Those are the three things major that draw people in. Hey, you got my attention. You know, that's what they do. Okay, power meaning, hey, we're backed by the military, and based on the SARA, you're going to get millions and millions of dollars. So that's money, power. And then men think, great, I'll be able to afford a wife and all these other things and a girlfriend and all that, and I can go have fun. So there's your sex. That's how it works. Now, money, power, and sex, you're dealing with Babylon. That's how Babylon was created. That's how Rome was created. That's how all these places are created. They produced money, power, and sex. That's how the three things that bring people in. All right. And then comes along a man that is saying, look, you don't need those things, money, power, and sex. You go to the man that can create the bread and the fish to feed everybody. You see where I'm coming with this? He's already has all that. You don't need this mammon to do that. Okay. Then people treat him as if he's an enemy. And obviously we're talking about Jesus here. So when we the one thing, let's go off into another world here. All right, let's move into a completely different world where these municipal bonds and basic understandings of man, they go beyond man. All right. Now, here's a question. You commit a crime. Say you commit a crime. Okay. Say you murdered somebody. And there's a bond on that case. Investors are investing in that bond. How is that? How do they do that? How do you monetize crime? Okay. That's the issue there. How is crime worth money? You try to think of it as from this relative price approach here, or this bond and financing here. And you're going to act as if you actually understand what they're saying. But literally, this is all just gobbledygook to me. It's all just crap. When you start reading this kind of stuff to me, I just slowly drift off to sleep because it's nothing but garbage. I'm going to tell you why. uh, when you have a promissory note and you deposit that promissory note into a bank, now listen to what I just said to you. You deposit that promissory note into a bank account in the bank's name. You're the one that's obligated to pay it. You're the debtor. Okay. The bank is supposedly giving you money. That's what everybody believes. When you sign the promissory note, you hand it to them and they write a check, and that the whatever the other owner is paid off, that loan is closed out, and you move on to a brand new mortgage that you have to pay for the next 30 years. 30 years, folks. Think about that. 30 years. That's a long, long time. That shouldn't be longer than 7 years, but it's 30 years. Okay. Now, you've got to let me say that one more time because I'm saying it really quick. And for people that don't understand what I'm talking about, you really need to listen to what I'm telling you. Okay. Meaning that when you sign a promissory note for a mortgage or a car, cars usually consumer notes, the bank takes that promissory note and deposits the promissory note into their bank account. This information came out from a man named Tom Schaff. So he was an accountant and he was starting to look at their books, the bank's books. He was a bank auditor. And he noticed that every one of the promissory notes, he would look at the bank's books and the bank had a plus amount, not a minus amount. Let me give you an example. This is not exactly what I'm going to be concentrating on this particular show, but I am going to show you how this graduates into something completely different as to why people do not understand the monetary system. And it's not all just theft. There's other things to it. Okay. So he started noticing that every promissory note, like if a promissory note went out for 49,000 for a house, 50 grand, whatever it was, he would notice at the bank, especially if it was a loan at the bank, you have a plus book and you have a minus book. You have money coming in, you have money going out. Okay. But in their system, if they had loaned you the money, then the bank would have minus $50,000 on a $50,000 promissory note. That's just basic economy. If I borrowed $1,000 from my buddy, okay, from my neighbor, the neighbor would have less $1,000 in his account. Okay, because he gave it to me, I would give him an IOU. Now, here's the question. Can he deposit the IOU and write a check off of it from you? You borrowed it from him. You give him an IOU. He goes down to the bank, deposits the IOU and into his account, and then writes you a check. He can't do that, can he? It's called check hiding. It's a crime. You can't write checks off of funds that you don't have. However, apparently the banks can. And this is why they're not audited. This is why the Federal Reserve will not allow itself to be audited because, and this is why they had to put that in that agreement because it was a scam, a banking scam. There was a man that there was one judge that allowed that case to come through where they never borrowed any money. The bank had no recourse against him, against the man. He kept his house, and the judge did the right thing. It was in Michigan. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody else will. And he was dead after 6 months. The bankers killed him for doing what he did. Now, what gives the bankers the right to kill this guy? Okay. Matter of fact, they have zero right to kill him. Talking about the judge, morally, they would not have the right to kill him. However, they work under a different set of rules. Just like Kissinger, he works under a different set of rules. They all do in the banking system. Okay. So apparently the judge was profiting from this money scam, this bank scam that's been going on. And since he's been profiting from it, he was a part of it. And he squealed. That's what it was. Snitches get stitches. That's their term. So he snitched, told everybody what was really going on, used the what do you call it? The perception of the judge as actually being a real judge, and everybody believes it, and they believe it through pain. So if a judge can put you in contempt and throw you in jail for a long time, as long as he wants, then he's a man to be feared, and nobody says anything about it. That's how they give legitimacy to their offices that they create, meaning the bankers. All right. However, in the last couple, or actually last 10 years, if I'd have said this 15 years ago, people would have called me crazy. But now I believe you're looking at what's going on in this country. Now maybe you'll believe what I'm trying to tell you. I've been trying to say for 20 years now. Okay. How do they monetize it? How do they monetize crime? Okay. Number one, you're involved in magic and wizardry. Okay. Because here's the thing. Tom Schaff, who was the bank auditor, started seeing promissory notes come in as a plus instead of a minus on the books, on the bank's books. So what they would do is they would take that promissory note, they would say it's money, that's magic, reclassifying something out of thin air with no law behind it, nothing. There's no common sense behind it either. It's just simple magic. So they pray over that promissory note, and the promissory note is magically brought into a plus side and not a negative side on the bank's books. That's all magic. Since we're dealing with magic, we're dealing with Satanism. Okay, so now that we're dealing in Satanism, as far as the system is concerned in the banking, because you can put all that together when you're dealing with magic, that is Satanism. And which means that initially the bankers never had any money in the first place. All they had was magic. That's something you'll need to contemplate and look over. Here's the second part. They're also dealing with a thing, that which Jesus refers him to, refers him as a thing, meaning the devil. I've seen that firsthand. He refers to him as a thing. Okay, and the reason why is because it is pure hatred. It's pure hate. There's no good in it. Okay, it doesn't make promises that it'll keep. It lies to you. Everything is a lie, no matter what it is. Okay, it has to stay there because of its claims that it is, or like the Father, meaning the hatred is going to be there forever. So that's why he believes he made himself full hate, and exactly opposite of love, exactly opposite of agape, and thinks that there's, where there's a where there's a plus, there's a minus, right? Okay. So look at yin and yang. It's the same concept they have over in China, Japan, and Oriental. Okay. So what we're looking at here is that when you commit a crime, I was watching a show the other day. It just kind of hit me. It was a 12-year-old girl that had stabbed her sister. I don't know if her sister died. I don't know what happened, if she was just injured. But this little girl was crying out, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. That's all she was saying. I think she was sorry that she got caught. It just happened. I don't know what happened. I do not know what happened, yet there was evidence of her cutting herself, which is Satan worship. Okay. Self-hatred. I mean, that was obvious to me, but not to those guys of the voice of reason, right? Those were the real slick ones. She was cutting herself, and I said, well, that girl had a demon. That's what her issue is. And that demon started, or basically took her and body over and stabbed her sister. But when she was cutting herself, people should have seen that, and they should have gotten her to where she needed to get fixed in the first place. Okay, but this is what happened. So I'm listening to it, and I'm listening to this little girl say, I'm sorry. But this guy, the cop, he's sitting there asking specific questions. What's your date of birth? What's your name? He's asking them like it's real innocent. He's asking those kind of questions. And he's saying, he's actually, and after about 5 minutes of listening to that guy, I go, oh man, he's actually entering her into the system. That's what he's doing. He's slowly working her in. You have to have certain things: address, phone number, um, uh, social security, all that. Asking for a social security number, asking all those things. During his investigation, part of his investigation was to process her into the jail so he could write out his report. So he's processing her into the system. So I'm thinking, why is he more worried about processing her into the system than he is doing an investigation as to what's going on? Why is he more worried about that? So how do you monetize a crime, or why do you monetize a crime? Because you have to have monetization, you have to have a creditor, and you have to have a debtor. Well, it finally hit me today exactly what they were doing. Now, the devil, the thing, okay, believes itself to be our Father in heaven. He thinks he's like him. He still believes all that. He hates Jesus with a passion because he has made himself hate, turned himself into hate, and destroyed anything that was good or righteous inside of himself. He turned himself into something that was an abomination. Okay. So it's not far-fetched to believe that it's not far-fetched to even see when you take what you're seeing on the screen right now in finance, where nothing makes any sense at all, to a point where did the money come from in finance? For instance, a bond is a type of security under which the issuer debtor owes the holder creditor a debt and is obliged depending on the terms. Now, okay, how does that creditor get that money in the first place? Well, he created it out of thin air. He created it by magic, and magic is devil worship. So if you want to be a secured party creditor or whatever they're wanting to do, pay $1,000, they're making you into what? A Satan worshiper, believing in magic. That's what they're doing. So whoever does that service, I would highly suggest you get your money back. Now, Number one. Number two, okay, that money got into the system. It was borrowed into the system, they call it. I call it that. Okay. Which means it was magically put into the system because a promissory note cannot, in any way, shape, or form, according to math and fact, it cannot be um, placed on the books as a plus and not a minus in their books. In other words, if it says the borrower is borrowing 50,000, that means on the bank's books they have to have minus 50,000. In other words, we gave the man 50,000, but that's not what they do. They put it on the plus side of the books. They write a check off of it as if they had that money. It's magic. They just create it out of thin air and put it in their account and write a check off of it. Their books are never audited, so nobody ever catches them doing that. That's called what we call check kiting. Remember that. Kiting, kiting. It's writing bad checks. That's all it is. All right. Like I said, I'm doing a wrap around here. I'm going to go right back to what's going on. If this entity or thing believes itself to be Jesus, or the Father himself, that means that you owe what? You owe him a debt. It a debt in that system. Everybody get what I just said? If you commit a crime, you end up being placed in that system through the gatekeepers who are police officers. And I call them the gatekeepers to hell. When they process you into that system, they are Satan worshipers. Every one of them are involved in that, whether they know it or not. And they are putting you up as a debtor to the devil himself. That you owe the devil a debt. It's all magic, folks. That's all it is. When in essence, you don't owe any debt to anyone because it was already paid for. All those were paid for at a high price, by the way. However, what you don't understand is repentance is the key to that payment. Repent. In other words, don't commit the crime in the first place. Don't kill anybody. Don't shoot anybody. Don't do this. Don't do that. Stop doing these things. Repent for your ways. Okay? So that's what's happening. And it's being associated with the state. Okay? So oh no, you owe the state. No, you're saying I don't owe the state. You're saying what you're saying is I owe the devil. That's what you're actually saying. Because you're going to be charged by the accuser, who's the prosecutor, who's the accuser, who's been pushing these railing accusations for thousands of years here, won't shut up, constantly accusing. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a prosecutor. The system is set up this way. It's a devil worshiping, Satan worshiping system. And it's the narrow way is the way you go towards the Father, the real one. And you repent and you go a different direction than you're going. The other way is the wide gate. Everybody's invited there. And that way you'll end up in where you will perish. Okay. And perishing means you're going to be thrown into a lake of fire. And that's not a joke. That's real. There's been thousands of people that have gone there and come back and gave you warning. So You can't say you haven't been warned. There's a lot of people that are saying the same exact thing, but don't know each other. And they're coming on video at different times saying, I've been there, I've seen it. Okay, I've been there myself, I've seen it. I remember the screams. That's all you can really just, it was horrid. The screams were the worst. And just saying that it does exist. So I'm trying to reach out, okay, to the police officers that are believing that they're doing something right when in fact they're not. Um, been trying to reach out to them for the last 13 years, 14 years, ever since I've had dealings with them. Uh, tried to watch out for them, tried to watch their back, and they have nothing. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't want the help. I've noticed that. But they choose to be Satanists. They choose to worship Satan. You can't be in that system and not know what you're doing. You can't be that stupid. Okay, no one in this world is that dumb. So it's being enforced. When we came out, the temple, the Reign in the Heavens Society temple came out and started witnessing against these devil worshippers, Satan worshippers. No one came to our aid. Nothing. No one. They let 14 of our websites be stolen. The people did. Everybody did. Not the people that were being stolen from. I'm talking about everybody else. Nobody stood up for us. Not even our Continental Army. They all stood down and then started attacking us, trying to claim that we were full of fraud, when in fact, none of what they said was true. So that's what happened. And when you look at this, when you commit a crime, because remember, in their world, they believe the devil to be righteous, right? Because he's like the Father. So he monetizes crime. Oh, you owe me this, you owe me that. He tries to reverse what Jesus did. He tries to stop what is happening. He tries to take his children, take the Father's children again and again and again. It's over and over and over since the beginning. And many people are allowing it to happen to themselves. My people are destroyed through lack of knowledge. So your so-called justice system, as I think it was so quaintly said by um, Dr. Phil, that is a lie. Quoting him, stating that if it was a justice system, the people that were killed would be returned. That would be justice, to return them back to life. But so there's no such thing. It doesn't exist in this world. And that's a man who, after 40 years, I think he knows what he's talking about. And dealing with the human psyche. Okay, so not to say that he's a righteous man, just saying that that's what he said. It was a pretty good thing to say. So what I'm saying here is this: if this is not turned around, we all know what's going to happen to the country. We all know it. We tried to stop it. We spent at our own expense at least 13 years to try to stop it. Some other gurus, or some gurus, were lying, trying to stop what we were doing. CIA has tried to stop it. And I'm just not having it anymore. I don't care what they say. It's whatever. Not worth it. Because people, you can't help people that don't want help. Just can't do it. It doesn't work. So there's your monetary system. That's your monetary system is based on what is owed to the devil. It's not our Father in heaven that they do this with. It's what is owed to the devil, which is nothing. It's all been paid for, but you know, they're not going to acknowledge that. That's why they don't want Jesus in their system. That's why you can't mention Jesus in the courtroom, because if you do, their whole monetary system goes down. The US Supreme Court said 60% of the economy is jails. So to them, it became, this makes sense as to why they would allow Roe v. Wade to go on for so long to kill babies. And it was on their shoulders. All that blood was on their shoulders. Still is. So put it together, folks. Wake up. Okay? Put it together and realize that system is based on a monetary system through the Rothschilds, who are avid Satanists. This is a satanic system. Okay? When you get into creditors, debtors, money, supply, all that kind of stuff, it's forced upon us. It's forced upon us that don't want to be a part of it, because you can't eat. Well, you can raise your own food, but you understand what I'm saying. You people don't accept anything but their Federal Reserve notes, and they literally believe that it is a part of the United States. They literally believe it's a part of the United States Constitution, which there is no such thing. It's called a Constitution of the United States. And if they look in there, they'll notice it's only gold and silver, but they're not doing that. And Trump comes back and says, "Oh, we're going with gold-backed money." No, you're not, Trump. It's not happening, bud. They're never going to allow you to do that. It's not going to happen. So realize this: that jail system is the devil's system. Devil has no righteousness. It has no standing to witness against you. Zero standing to witness against you. A sin is not at its door. It's a creation. That's all it is. And if you start realizing that, you'll start realizing, wait a minute. Then the people will come back and go, "Oh, no, it's just the people that do this." In other words, they owe the people. They don't owe anything other than to be separated and shunned, exiled, gone. Put them out in the world by themselves. Put them in the forests. Have them forage for their own food. If you want to be an animal, you're going to act like one. If you think it's okay to kill other people, well, we're going to put you in a place. Might throw your butt in Africa, and you can go ahead and compete for food with the lions and everybody else, all the other animals. Or you can stand up and stop doing what you're doing. So there it is. It's a beast system. So you're right. Everything is exactly like that, but you have to go further in that system. And there's not going to be one preacher that'll preach out against that jail system, the prison system, or anything of that nature. They won't do it, because most of them are based on 501c3. That will get pulled away from them, and away you go. But they will not do it. So just letting you know, you heard it here first. They're not going to do this. So there you go. Thanks for listening to the T Row Show. I hope you learned something today. I hope I was able to explain it in such a way that that was understandable for everyone. And I will see you next time.